What's up, psychedelic investors? James here, coming at you with a fantastic episode. So I'm really excited for today's episode because we're going to be talking about MindMed's Microdosing Division. Now, MindMed's Microdosing Division is actually one of the impetuses for me getting into investing in psychedelic medicines in the first place, so I'm super excited about this episode. The reason we're talking about it today is that MindMed actually recently announced that they are going to start dosing people in a new clinical study or a new study, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But first, I think it would be good just to give a quick breakdown of MindMed's Microdosing Division as it stands. So we're going to go ahead and put up on the screen MindMed's website. So we see here part of MindMed's website talking about their Microdosing Division. So at the moment, MindMed's division for microdosing is split into two different pieces. We have what they call microdosing for, quote, macro healing, and then we also have microdosing for adult ADHD, or as they call, Generation Adderall. So we're just going to briefly discuss both sides of the microdosing division, and then we're going to take a look at some of the studies that they're doing. So we're going to start actually with the macro healing because I feel like it gives a better understanding of why MindMed is studying microdosing, LSD microdosing in the first place. So they start with a definition, always a great place to start. Microdosing refers to a smaller, non-hallucinogenic dose of LSD, so subperceptual. In these cases, the medicinal properties of the compound address the illness and may not require hallucinogenic doses as a component of healing. Extensive anecdotal evidence suggests microdosing psilocybin and LSD may increase focus, decrease anxiety, increase creativity, and improve mood. So what's really interesting here, guys, when they're talking about macro healing, is they're not saying that this is great for helping treat depression or anxiety or ADHD, what have you. These are things that can help everybody, your average Joe, your average James. Maybe in the future, if these studies go super well and microdosing LSD is actually proven to increase focus, decrease anxiety, increase creativity, and improve mood, maybe in the future we'll be able to just walk into our local pharmacy and without a prescription from a doctor, get yourself some LSD microdosing pills to increase all of these issues here. Increase focus, decrease anxiety, increase creativity, and improve mood. That is the future that I want to live in. So they continue here, rigorous scientific trials are in progress to validate these claims and ensure the highest standards of quality, safety, and efficacy for medical use if approved. This is where MindMed's Microdosing Division comes in. So again, this is the first half of their microdosing division, treating, again, what they call macro healing. Healing all the general areas of your life so that you can just have an increased quality of life. Now, this isn't where they stop. Obviously, this is a pharmaceuticals company. They are working on treating specific issues, which gets us to the second half of their microdosing program, at least for now, which is Generation Adderall, treating adults with ADHD. So they start off here by just giving a couple stats why treating ADHD is so important. They say that 10 million adults in the United States have ADHD, or at least have been diagnosed with ADHD. Perhaps the real number is much larger. And only 11% of these people are currently receiving treatment. That means 89% of adults who are diagnosed with ADHD are going without any sort of treatment. And the rates of diagnoses are skyrocketing. Between 2007 and 2016, the rate of diagnoses has more than doubled. It's gone up 123%. And I'm sure if we looked at this stat again in 2021, it's going to be even higher. Now, I don't know if more people are actually getting ADHD or if just more people are being diagnosed with ADHD, but either way, we can see that this is a growing population of people who need treatment. Okay, let's read a couple things that MindMed says here, and then we're going to get into the two different studies. So, MindMed says, while ADHD is often associated with children and adolescents, adults living with the disease face numerous challenges from debilitating struggles with time management and impulsivity to mood swings and disorganization. So, take a look at what they say here. Time management problems, impulsivity, mood swings, and disorganization. And then let's take a look at what microdosing LSD, according to anecdotal evidence, is supposed to help with. Increase your focus, decrease your anxiety, improve your mood. A great reason why LSD microdosing is being tested on adults with ADHD first is because it appears that the anecdotal benefits you get from it are all things that can help people with adult ADHD. Moving on, existing medicines to treat ADHD can be highly addictive themselves and have dangerous long-term effects on health. Many people do not get treatment, and many people prefer to suffer versus taking the risks associated with treatment. I'm gonna rant for a second, guys. One of the stupidest things that our society has done over the past, few decades is decide to take a bunch of children that fidget in class and have trouble paying attention to their teacher and be like, I have a great idea. Why don't we give these kids a bunch of meth light? That's sure going to be a great thing long term, and it's not at all going to make them addicted to it or cause them long-term health benefits or health consequences for taking these stimulants every day for the rest of their life. That's totally a great idea. I don't know how this decision was made, but it seems like complete and total insanity to me, guys. And I'm not saying if you're diagnosed with ADHD, don't take your medication, listen to your doctor, but there should be, and there probably is, better solutions on the table. So if it turns out that LSD microdosing can, in fact, increase focus, decrease anxiety, increase creativity, and improve your mood, and it is not addictive and doesn't cause the same long-term health negative consequences that taking stimulants does, then we might be on the cusp of really being able to help people in a much better way than we have up until this point. Alrighty guys, we're going to get into the reason we're making this video today now, which is MindMed put out this press release a couple days ago on November 16th, the title of which is MindMed launches study of low-dose LSD effects on sleep and cognitive measurements. So again, this is on the second one here, the microdosing for macro healing. This falls into that category of MindMed's microdosing department. And by the way, this department actually has a really cool name. It's called Project Flow, which stems from the idea that microdosing psychedelics can help you get into states of flow or get really engaged on a topic. So this is the second part of Project Flow here. Now, the title is actually a little bit boring, which kind of hides the exciting aspects of this study, which we are going to get into in just a second. So, reading here, MindMed launched recruitment for a randomized placebo-controlled study evaluating the effects of daytime and evening administration of repeated low doses of LSD. Right off the bat, a couple things to point out here. First and foremost, this isn't a clinical trial, this is a study, which means that some of the barriers to start this are probably lower, but also they couldn't use the results of this to justify bringing a drug to market. They could only really use this to justify larger scale, more stringent clinical trials. Despite that, the second important thing here is it is going to be placebo-controlled and randomized. Now, this is really important because even though we do have thousands of anecdotal stories about how microdosing can do all of the things you see on your screen now, however, it is an open question whether or not this is caused from the pharmacokinetic aspects of LSD itself or whether this is just the placebo effect. So you guys may recall recently, or like 8 months ago, we covered a story on this channel that looked at an Imperial College of London study that looked at microdosing, led by Robin Carhart-Harris, that said the benefits of microdosing psychedelics are probably just a placebo effect. Now, this is just one study, and if you go and watch that video, we'll probably put a link above somewhere. If you go and watch that video, you'll see that even though I'm not a scientist, I did have a few issues with how that study was run. Nevertheless, it is a study that showed that it was more or less just a placebo effect. So the very first important thing that MindMed needs to show here is that it is not in fact a placebo effect, that this does have effects that are greater than control group. And if it doesn't, then great. At least we have the knowledge. At least we are confirming that it is the placebo effect. I don't think it is. I hope it isn't, but that's the first important thing to point out here. Next, the main purpose of this study is to measure the varying effects of when you take LSD microdose. So if you take it at the beginning of the day during daytime as compared to taking it before you go to bed, what are the differences in effects? So that's interesting. It is very cool that they're doing this, just kind of getting the base research, but it's not necessarily what I'm most interested about when it comes to this study. So let's just continue here for a second. It says researchers will use digital measurement devices and software to measure the effects of microdoses of LSD. Now, they don't use the word here, but if we take a look at a previous press release talking about this study, they say that they're going to be using their Project Albert in this study. Now, what is Project Albert? Project Albert is MindMed's Digital Medicines Division. We've heard so much recently about, over the past year, how in the future we're going to view MindMed not only as a pharmaceuticals company, but also as a tech company. So we are seeing in this study, they're going to be using their technology, their software, their hardware to help better measure the effects and effectiveness of LSD. Now, we don't know exactly what form that will be in. Probably it'll be some wearable technology that can measure your biometrics, like your pulse and other great stuff. But it is interesting and fun to see the convergence of different programs, projects that MindMed is working on. In some respects, this is not just a test of testing LSD microdosing, but also their Project Albert. So that's just an extra reason to keep an eye on this study. So yeah, they're using Project Albert to measure the effects of microdoses of LSD on neuroplasticity markers, as well as on various sleep measures, mood, cognitive performance, regulation of emotions, quality of life, and immune system response. So this is the part of the study that I personally am very excited for. I want to see how LSD microdoses, whether they're taken in the morning or at night, are more effective as compared to the placebo in treating or in improving your mood, improving your cognitive performance, regulating your emotions or quality of life, whether it has any negative immune system responses or whether there's positive benefits to that. It will be this part of the results that excites me most, because that's what I want to see if LSD microdoses can do. I want to see if LSD microdoses can improve my quality of life, if it can improve my regulation of emotions. Somebody who's never been diagnosed with any mental health care issue, I would be the type of person that could maybe be in this study because it is being done in healthy individuals. And I want to see a future where it is possible that I can go to the pharmacy and pick up my LSD microdoses. I don't exactly know if that's where MindMed is intending to go with this, but this is kind of laying the groundwork for that future. And this would be a great place to just take a breather and talk about, very briefly, part of the reason why I like MindMed as a company so much, as an investor, and that's because when I am investing, I ask myself two main questions. I'm an ethical investor. Is this company trying to change the world for the better? And are they likely to succeed? Now, it seems to me that if the LSD microdosing program goes smoothly and they do confirm that what these anecdotal reports show, that MindMed could possibly change the world for the better here. If your average Joe, your average James could go and pick up an LSD microdose and improve their quality of life, then it seems both likely that they could change the world and they're trying to change the world and they're likely to accomplishment. And again, this isn't financial advice. I'm just talking about why I personally like the company. It's my own personal opinion. Anyhow, next important point here. The study will be conducted by Dr. Kim Kuipers of Maastricht University, a leading global authority on the use of low-dose psychedelics. You guys need to remember this name, Dr. Kim Kuipers. She is very important. We've talked about it on this channel before. The other lead scientist MindMed has, Dr. Lichi in Basel, Switzerland. But here, Dr. Kim Kuipers is equally important. Again, she's in the Netherlands at Maastricht University, and she is an expert not only on psychedelics in general, but also microdosing in particular. So we're going to just take a look here real quickly. Dr. Kuipers, along with other well-known names in the industry like Paul Stamets, recently, 2 days ago, November 18th, released a study looking at microdosing, which showed that those who microdosed had lower levels of anxiety and depression compared to non-microdosers. So we're not going to get into this study now for the interest of time, but we are actually going to cover it by the end of this week. So make sure that you are subscribed to the channel if you're not already so you don't miss this upcoming episode. We're going to dive deep into the results of this new study looking at the effectiveness of microdosing psychedelics, excuse me. The only reason I'm bringing this up now is to show you that Dr. Kim Kuipers is the real deal. She knows what she's talking about when it comes to microdosing, and when we're leading or running microdosing studies, there's nobody better to lead it than her. Alrighty, so we're going to give you a quote of Dr. Kuipers now. She says that research into the practice of taking repeated low doses of psychedelics starts with the basics, looking at whether there is a time of day that influences the impact of these treatments. So again, goes to one of the points why I like this company, is that they're willing to put the time, resources, money, and effort into doing the base research that needs to be done, even if it's not necessarily the more sexy thing. The more sexy thing is looking at how it improves your mood, but perhaps we need to know when the best time of day is before we can look at whether it improves your mood or not. Continuing, we are investigating whether the repeated intake of lower doses could lead to the realignment of patterns of thinking that would enable individuals to assess levels of self-awareness that can provide an enriched experience of life. So again, I completely agree with everything that she's saying, especially how individuals can enrich their life with this, not necessarily sick individuals, but just individuals in general. Next, we're going to get into a quote by Dr. Happerlin Wernley, who is MindMed's executive president, and honestly, Dr. Wernley has the best quotes in every press release, so I always love reading them. She says, increasingly claims are being made about so-called microdosing of psychedelics regarding the potential to impact mental and physical well-being, cognition, memory, and specific aspects such as creativity and productivity. However, scientific evidence to support or even fully explore the safety and benefits of these claims has been lacking, which is why we're doing all these trials and studies. With our innovative study design, integrating digital medicine measurement techniques, Project Albert, with more traditional self-reporting cognitive tasks, our goal is to provide insight on key parameters that may impact and explain the mechanisms behind low-dose treatments. These parameters include nighttime versus daytime differences and possible cumulative effects due to repeated administration. This regime could provide new tools to deal with various pathologies, helping to unblock pathological ways of thinking by shifting an individual's perspective, catalyzing insights, and ultimately changing problematic and habitual mindsets and behaviors. So this is super important, guys. Often people who have certain mental disorders, and even people who don't have mental disorders, they get hung up on a really specific thought. So maybe if you have anxiety or depression, that thought that you keep revolving around and coming back to is I'm not good enough, or it was my fault. Or perhaps if you have trauma and you're remembering that trauma, the thought that you keep thinking about is perhaps I'm to blame for this. Or maybe it's just I'm not good enough. Whatever it is, oftentimes people will get a thought in their mind, and this thought will have a gravitational pull that they just keep circling and circling, and they're unable to break away from it, unable to break away from this pathological way of thinking. If microdosing can help you break free of those chains, then this can help so many people. Not only people who have diagnoses of whatever, ADHD, depression, anxiety, but people that are still struggling with their own personal thoughts and aren't diagnosed with anything. So again, I'm kind of talking about this in a really roundabout way, but this just really goes to show a lot of the reasons that I like MindMed, and specifically their microdosing division. Alrighty guys, we're now going to move on. We're going to take a look specifically at their program using LSD microdoses to treat adult ADHD. So if we take a look at their most recent investors deck here, we can see that it was published this month in November. So hopefully this information is pretty up to date. I'm just going to zoom in here, guys, so that you can see. There we go. There we go. There we go. We can see that they still plan to start phase 2A of their clinical trial to treat adult ADHD with microdoses of psilocybin in late 2021. Guys, we're in late 2021. We've got like 40 days left in this year. So I would be expecting any time now, like any week now, to get a press release saying that we're starting this clinical trial. And even if we don't, if it gets delayed by a couple months, it's whatever. It doesn't matter as long as they actually get this started within, I would say, half a year. But it's possible that we could get information on this within weeks, and I really hope we do. I would be very, very, very excited. So this clinical trial is going to start very soon, and at the beginning we already talked about the importance of this, or why we might be treating it, so we won't get into that too much. But again, just as a quick recap, a lot of the potential benefits of LSD microdosing are the issues that people with ADHD, particularly those who are adults, struggle with, so it makes sense that we would be attempting to treat those. So again, this is going to start very soon. And just a couple quick points about this clinical trial from various press releases they've released over the past year. So again, this microdosing clinical trial is going to be led by Dr. Kim Kuipers, because again, she's just a badass when it comes to microdosing. She knows her shit. She knows what she's doing. So it says she's an associate professor at the Department of Neuropsychology and Psychopharmacology at the Maastricht University. She's going to be the principal investigator of this trial. However, this trial is not only going to take place at University Hospital or at Maastricht University, but also at University Hospital Basel, where of course Dr. Lichi works. So we're really going to have the two star scientific minds of MindMed both working on this clinical trial. The last thing I really wanted to say about this was just a quote from the co-founder and now ex-CEO of MindMed. And this just really, in my opinion at least, crystallizes the mission of MindMed, why this company exists. And it's talking specifically about this Project Flow treating ADHD with microdoses of LSD, but you can really expand it to other areas. So J.R. Ron, ex-CEO, said, "The genesis of MindMed came when I was hearing anecdotal evidence from friends in Silicon Valley that microdosing was helping them to get off stimulant-based ADHD medications and with other medical ailments. I started exploring and talking with leading scientists around the world and discovered that what is happening in the shadows should be brought to light, understood by the medical community, and be available in a safe, regulated way to everyone." I'm just going to keep highlighting this for you guys. Available to everyone. MindMed is focused on becoming the global leader in microdosing to help millions who suffer from illnesses like ADHD. We are quickly amassing a strong group of preeminent clinical researchers and scientific minds, so that's your Dr. Kuipers, that's your Dr. Lichis, on this important and innovative work. So I think that sums up the mission of MindMed really nicely. They are out to make the world a better place. They can do this with LSD microdosing, both to help the general population and to help people with specific issues. We're starting with ADHD, but I would not be surprised if we moved on to other ailments like depression, anxiety in the future. Also, keep in mind that they're probably going to expand other drugs like psilocybin, maybe mescaline, maybe other drugs in the future. The microdosing division is still very young. I fully expect it to expand in the years to come. The last important point to bring up is that MindMed already has data on LSD microdosing. Last year, about a year ago actually, November 2nd, 2020, they announced that they released a study looking at the comparative effects of different doses of LSD. And they went as low as 25 micrograms of LSD, which they call a microdose. I might dispute that a little bit. I've always heard a microdose was 10 micrograms of LSD. But whatever, if they're using 25 micrograms, they're the experts, not me. And they went all the way up to huge doses of 200 micrograms, which is enough to dissolve your ego completely. And they compared the comparative effects. I did actually read the study of this. They got a link down to it here somewhere. Let's just click on it. I did read this study today, and they didn't really go too much in depth about what the effects were of the lower dose there. So I'm not really going to talk about it here. The only important point that I'm trying to bring up is the fact that MindMed knows what they're talking about when it comes to microdosing LSD. They've already done studies on it in the past. They have researchers that have done studies on it in the past. This isn't something they're just trying out of the blue. So I'm very excited about this. And if you guys want to learn more about microdosing, actually our best performing video right now is a how-to guide on how to microdose psilocybin, but still relevant. So I will go ahead and link that at the end of this video, which is in like a minute if you want to check that out. I definitely suggest it. It's one of my favorite videos I've ever made. So definitely check that out if you want to learn more about microdosing. And then also just a quick plug for our partners at psychedelicspotlight.com. They are an amazing news organization, one of the largest dedicated to covering the psychedelic space, to cover the economic issues, the cultural issues, the business issues, the scientific issues in a holistic manner. So they're a really great source of information. Please go check them out. Again, it's psychedelicspotlight.com. We also do a lot of podcasts for psychedelicspotlight.com that isn't found on this channel. So if you want to see that, make sure you definitely go check out psychedelicspotlight.com. And with that said, if you enjoyed this episode, like, subscribe, hug your mom, comment down below if you've ever tried microdosing before, and if so, how your experience went. That's all for today, folks. My name is James from The Psychedelic Investor. I love you, and I will see you soon.